Welcome, Rasa. Rasaviharii. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Rasaviharii on the show. We last spoke back in May, and we had an interesting discussion, and you were quite keen for us to talk again. And so I was just wondering what progress and updates have you for us since then?
Well, as you know, there's been a lot going on with this David Grush story.
Yes, that's right.
So there's three things I would like to talk about today. I don't like to make a lot of predictions about the future, but there's some things going on which I think are leading up to something. So as I mentioned in one of my previous shows, is that NASA has plans to reveal that the Apollo missions were a hoax. I'm a whistleblower. I have inside information to this. So I'm the one who's been revealing this. There's many people who know this, but most of them are not talking about it.
I don't think this was on her Panmo show. I think it was on Apollo Detectives. You mentioned that NASA may be about to come clean. Can you give us any information on how you know that, or is it all private?
The reason is because China told me about this back in 2016, and I have a couple friends who are NASA employees, and I was talking to them about this. I have many friends in the Chinese space mission, and I have a couple friends in the European Space Association, and I have two friends who work at NASA. But out of all these people, only one of these NASA friends do I talk to this about, because she also knows that this thing was a hoax. We go through evidences together. You know, every time I find a new smoking gun, I show it to my NASA friend, and I'm like, what do you think about this? And most importantly, we also discuss how did they pull this thing off. This is a big subject, which hopefully we can get into today.
We discussed some of the evidence that have been gathered by independent researchers. Can I ask, is your friend open to the kind of information we talked about with Marcus and Neil and all the others on the Apollo Detective show?
Well, I asked her, I said, would you be willing to come out and do an interview with us? But she's like, no, I don't want to lose my job.
Well, yeah, this is always a problem, isn't it? This is always a bit of an obstacle. Has she given you information from the inside about how this was done, about how the moon missions were faked?
No, because she's not allowed to ask around in her office about the Apollo missions.
It wouldn't make you very popular with some people, yeah.
But the thing is, you know, I have been talking with her ever since 2003. You know, I started pulling photos off the NASA web pages and showing it to my friend who's a NASA employee, and it's like, look at this. This seems to be a blooper here, or a mistake. So we've been discussing what are the evidences that it was a hoax and how did they pull it off. It's just private conversations I'm having with her. So this is the thing is, I learned that NASA has plans to admit they fake this thing. And they are hoping that they can delay this announcement until 2025 or 2026.
Can I ask, why would they do this after all these years? Suddenly say, after insisting these things were real since 1969.
That's a good thing. It's a very good question. So the reason is because there are many NASA employees who know this thing was a hoax, and they have promised not to blow the whistle until a certain time. There's many people who know it was a hoax, but they're not talking. And the reason they're not talking is NASA said, just keep quiet for a while, and then in 2025, 2026, we're going to make a big public announcement, and then everything will come clean, and you won't have to lie for us anymore. So that's the big thing. What is the lies that they're telling now? Let's be very specific. What is the actual lie which NASA is saying now? The actual lie is that the reason we need radiation protection now, when we didn't need it back then, is because now we're planning on a longer trip to Mars or building a moon base. So now we need radiation protection. But the Apollo missions were just short missions, so we didn't really need radiation protection back then. This is absolute lie. Okay,
Yeah.
it's totally a lie. They definitely needed it back then, and they didn't have it back then. And the people who are working in that field, who are the people who are designing the new radiation protection material, they know that the Apollo missions couldn't have happened. See, this is important because many people in my Facebook group ask me, they say, well, NASA faked it back then so they could fake it again now. No, this is totally wrong. Okay. You see, you have to look at the way NASA was back then compared to the way it is now. You see, back then in the 60s, there was a group of Freemasons sitting around in the mission control. Inside of mission control, you have the main room and you have all the back rooms. So in the back rooms, the people were just watching their monitors, and their monitors was just data which is being fed to them from the front room. So all these thousands of employees didn't know. They thought it was real. Only the people in the front room knew it was real. And there was only astronauts who were allowed into that front room. You know, it was a very small group of Freemasons who were able to pull off this hoax.
Society was very different as well back then.
Right. So now everything is open source. You know, NASA is very public about everything they're doing. Every step of the Artemis mission is on the internet, and high school students are following it. And so there's no way they could pull off a hoax now. There's way too many people who are watching very closely. It's not just a small group of Freemasons who can keep a secret anymore. This is totally wrong thinking if you think that they could pull off another hoax. They have to do it. You see, and this is the thing is, let me just talk about the radiation protection because that's my specialty. There's 3 things they're doing now to protect the astronauts. One, there's a new type of material called boron nitride nanotubes. And the second thing they're doing is they're putting big bags of water on the walls of the ship. And the third thing they're doing, they have invested billions of dollars into cancer treatments. For decades, they've been researching all of these high-tech cancer treatments because they know that the astronauts will be coming back with cancer. You see,
Oh dear.
Artemis 2 is scheduled to launch in November of 2024. And despite, you know, they have this high-tech nanotube materials to protect from radiation and the bags of water, but still the radiation is going to get through and the astronauts will be coming back with cancer. There's 4 people, right? They've selected the 4 astronauts for Artemis 2. I can guarantee you these people know the risks. There's 3 risks, right? One is that a micrometeorite could come along at any time and knock your ship out, and then you're dead, right? The second risk is a solar particle event. If the sun gives off a solar particle event while they're out there, they're finished, you know? There's no protection from that. And so then the third thing is this galactic cosmic rays, which are there all the time. So that's going to penetrate your ship. There's no way to stop that. So they will be coming back with cancer. So this is the thing is there's many people who know that the Apollo mission simply could not have happened. And why are these people not talking? The reason they're talking is because NASA has promised them, just keep quiet until 2025, 2026, and then we'll make our public confession. That's why they're keeping quiet.
Sorry, Raz, just asking, where did this promise come from? Which was this in NASA's administration? Right to the top, like Bill Nelson and people like that?
You see, the decision to fake the moon landings was made in 1962. And that's why they called it the Apollo missions, because Apollo is a sun god, whereas Artemis is the moon goddess, right? So they knew that the Apollo missions would be the fake and the Artemis missions would be the real thing. They knew that from way back in 1962. And they knew that they wouldn't be able to keep it a secret forever.
So they knew
there's
one
no
day
way.
they'd do a mission called Artemis, which would be real, and the Apollo one was
Right,
fake. Mm.
right. And so from my understanding is that there's many countries who also know the Apollo missions were a hoax, like Japan and Europe and Russia and China. China was told in 1982, NASA told China that we have plans to admit that this thing was a hoax. So if they told China that in 1982, they probably told Japan even earlier. And then later on, India also found out. They also told India about it. And they also obviously told Elon Musk about it.
It seems they're telling people whenever they're about to have their own successful space program. Because
Right.
presumably when
That's
they
the
have
thing.
that, they could find out, which is why the Soviet Union had to know from day one.
Soviets knew from 1965 because that's when they made an agreement with America. It was that we're going to let you win the nuclear arms race and we're going to win the space race. So
Mm.
from 1965, America started declining their nuclear weapons and started supplying Russia with their nuclear weapons so Russia could win the nuclear arms race.
Anthony Sutton was right. Blimey. I was just wondering, Rasa. Now, obviously, this promise to the people who know within the NASA employment circles, among their staff who know the moon landings were fake, and as you explained, they're bound to work it out because of their current work on Artemis. Is it possible that they're saying this simply to keep those people quiet when they actually have no intention of really admitting it? Is it just an
Well,
empty
but this
promise?
no, but see, that's the thing is these people are not happy about being forced to lie. There's people who are in NASA, there's people who are in the European Space Agency, in the Tesla, in China and in Japan, India, so many people who don't want to lie about this thing. They're like, let's just come clean and then we can just be truthful from then on.
Mhm.
They're not happy about being forced to lie. So, but that's what they were told. They said, just keep quiet until 2025 and then we'll come clean. So, this is the only reason why they're not talking. But they agreed to keep quiet until this admission comes. So, if this admission doesn't come, then the more and more and more whistleblowers are just going to come out. They have no choice.
Yeah. If I was in their position, if I was in the position of these people who work for NASA and know the moon landings were fake, why wait until 2025? Why not do it now? If you want me to keep quiet until 2025, are you just telling me this so that I'll keep quiet? Are you doing some kind of fake deal with me and you're trying to cheat me into keeping quiet? Find some way maybe to arrange a car accident for me, Thomas Ron Barron style or something like that.
Right. No, see, the thing is, there's thousands of people who know. You can't just kill them all. So let's do this thing for real. Because the sooner we can do this thing for real, the sooner we can come clean about this. The official plan is that we will announce this thing after Artemis 3. So that's the official
That's the
plan. Is that,
lander. That's the landing.
yeah. But the thing is, that is only considering that Artemis 2 goes without a hitch. If there's any kind of a problem with Artemis 2, then they're going to have to admit it early. That's why I'm saying they're hoping they can delay it until 2025, 2026. But if anything goes wrong with Artemis 2, if the ship gets blown up, if the people come back with incurable cancer, they have no choice but to admit it. It's like, okay, yeah. But regarding this admission, there's one other important thing which I have to tell is that when they admit this to the public, what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to say, well, we did it because there was a Cold War and we had to beat those Russians. So basically, they're going to replace one lie with another lie. The public is going to buy this. That's why I've been making all these video series about the Cold War is a hoax. The Russians knew all along from 1965, the Russians knew. NASA helped them to fake their own thing. The first Russian spacewalk in 1965 was also a hoax. So NASA was helping Russia to fake some of their stuff early on as well. So this whole theory that we did it to beat the Russians is just another lie. But unfortunately, people are going to buy that lie.
Well, there always will be, unfortunately, a certain number of people who will just believe everything they're told. Literally, a large number of people will. Not everyone. I mean, hopefully enough people will see through it.
Well, see, the thing is, one of the reasons why so many people are going to buy that is because the situation in Ukraine, they've got their puppet Putin in place. Like I say, I don't like to make predictions about the future. I'm pretty sure that this situation in Ukraine is just going to keep escalating until finally 2025, 2026. And then they're going to have it really blown up. And so the Americans are really going to hate Russia by that time. So that'll be the perfect time to inject this theory that, well, we faked the moon landings to beat those evil Russians,
I mean, I see. I suppose the Ukraine thing is really getting bogged down now. It's just been dragging on for ages, and there doesn't seem to be any way to end it. It just seems to be
they're trying to drag it out as long as they can.
Yeah, they've just announced 26 fighter jets being sent from the Netherlands to the Ukraine now, so that's more money being sent and more money being sent to the Zelensky regime, and it just seems like obviously it's an industry, so some people are making money off it. It serves a geopolitical purpose, but I mean, obviously, what I suppose if I were President Putin, my response would be, that was the Soviet Union. This is the new Russia. I was just a junior KGB counterintelligence officer in those days, and which is true. He was actually. He was chasing Oleg Gordievsky and people like that in those days. But in the 80s, that's what he did. But will people believe that? Or do people understand the difference between the Soviet Union and Russia today? Do you think enough time's gone past?
No, you see, in order to answer this, you have to look a little bit into the left-right policies. So one of the things was that at the beginning of the Trump presidency, he was trying to make friendships with Putin. And there was a lot of right-wing Trump fans who also started to support Putin. But then all of a sudden, the bankers who are controlling Putin said, no, this isn't good. You can't have right-wing Americans in favor of you. So they told Putin to change his story about global warming. So what happened was Putin all of a sudden switched from saying global warming is a hoax to saying global warming was real. And once he said that, he lost all the right-wing support in America. So now Putin, everybody both on the right and the left in America can hate Putin again. So he's a perfect puppet being told what to say and which roles to play.
See, when NASA say 2025 or 2026, is this all to do with when Artemis 3 takes place?
Right.
So, which is due, it's currently due, I say, November next year.
Artemis 2 is November of 2024.
Oh, really? Oh, right.
Artemis 3, they were giving a date like December 2025, but then just recently, about a month ago or 2 months ago, they said, no, we're going to have to delay it to 2026. And they started blaming Musk. They said, well, I don't think your Starship is going to be ready by 2025. So they're still sticking it to 2026, though. Now, the thing is this. Like I said, I don't like to make predictions about the future, but there are two other subjects which I wanted to talk about. Okay.
Sure.
First one is the release of the free energy technology. And the second one is the release of the fact that they've been suppressing the UFOs.
Yeah, we're seeing the signs already of both of those subjects.
Yes.
It's like they are preparing the ground for some kind of revelation.
Right.
And we talked a little bit in May about the various projects that have been highlighted, especially around the element of nuclear fusion. But since then, there's been a lot. Since I last spoke to you, there's been a few developments.
Right. There's been a lot of developments in both of these. I have a lot of stories to tell I didn't get to tell last time. Let me first cover this UFO subject, and then we'll talk about the free energy subject.
Cool.
Okay? Because I think free energy subject, there's not many people who are into that these days, unfortunately.
Not as many as should be.
Let me tell you one story which I've never really told many people before, but this is a very interesting story. Okay, so as you all know, the Roswell incident was in 1947, right?
Hmm.
Now, a lot of people also saw this movie called the JFK, right?
Yeah, Oliver Stone's, yeah.
In the movie JFK, at the very, very end of the movie, there's a lawyer and he's talking with one congressman and he's asking this congressman, he says, so basically my whole court case is ended and we're screwed and the truth is never going to come out. And then this kind of a whistleblower guy said, the truth will come out. And he said, there is a clause in the U.S. Constitution where if the CIA does a cover-up, that cover-up can only last for 50 years, and then they have to release all the information. This is something which a lot of people don't know about, but it was there at the end of the JFK movie. They mentioned that there's a 50-year clause in the Constitution. Now, the 50-year anniversary of the Roswell incident was in 1997. Okay.
Yes, there was a big conference. I remember there was a big conference in Leeds.
There was a big conference also in Roswell. But the thing was this: I have a personal story, which is quite amazing. Now, what happened was, in 1997, I was living in Oregon, and I was a university student, and I don't drink, I don't do drugs or anything like that, but I had a lot of friends, and I used to go to parties, and my friends would be drinking, and sometimes that would be boring for me, because I wasn't drinking myself. What happened was, one night I went to this party. My friends were all drinking, and I kind of got bored. So I went to the living room, and there was a TV, okay, and I just turned on the TV, and the TV happened to come to the CNN. So I started watching CNN because I was really bored. And then all of a sudden, a report came out on CNN which says, this is the 50-year anniversary of the Roswell incident, and the CIA has released some documents. And the CIA has admitted that it was not a weather balloon, and they released some sketches, some hand-drawn sketches of like a spaceship and some little aliens, And this is so strange because this came out at like midnight or like 2 a.m. or something like that. There was one CNN report and then it disappeared. And I have never been able to find this again. I've been searching all over the internet and everything I can. And it was like, so the reason they did that is because they had to do this admission, but then they could hide the admission. But they had to make that admission so that later on nobody can sue them and say, what happened to your 50-year report? Oh, we did admit it on the 50-year anniversary. And here's the CNN interview. But it's like you can't find that anywhere. It's like they're hiding it. So I think I'm probably the only person who actually saw this CNN report where they admitted that they lied. Okay.
Oh, if only someone had a VCR running at that time, because
I wish.
Yeah, there's no streaming services in those days, but people had videos, cassettes, and they could record TV. I mean, if only. But I mean, because there was an admission in '97, but I mean, there was an official permanent admission, but it was that. It was the book, The Roswell Case Closed, which talked about Project Mogul, which were about the balloon with the spy equipment on, which was just another part of the cover-up. I mean, that was a lie as well.
Right. They did admit it. So that's why, nowadays, they started this David Grush came into the Congress, right?
Yeah.
And for me, that's like not a surprise, it's because I've known about this since 1997. I was like, yeah, I know that they lied. They admitted they lied, but I can't prove that to anybody because I didn't have a VCR to record that show. I wish I did, but it's like, but anyhow, I've known about this since 1997.
It's now more than 75 years since the
Right.
actual Roswell incident. I mean, is that another milestone which has to be marked?
Let me give a rundown because a lot of people don't know about this David Grush thing. So let me just give a really quick rundown of what's actually going on,
Sure.
because it's a little bit difficult to understand. So in the June 9th of 2022, NASA created a study team to study what they call UAPs, right? They changed the name from UFO to UAP, right? So NASA created a study team in 2022, and they were given access to the Defense Department's secret files. So the Defense Department has over 800 sightings, and this is all top secret. Whenever somebody reports a sighting, it goes to the Defense Department and they put it in a closet and nobody can see it. But finally, in 2022, NASA created this study team where they had access to these more than 800 sightings. And then in May 31st of 2023, this study team came out and made a public conclusion of their findings.
It was a 4-hour conference, which really didn't say an awful lot.
It said nothing, basically. Well, all they said is that we don't have enough evidence to make a conclusion. They said two things. They debunked one video. There was one video where there was 3 little lights moving, and they said that was just the camera moving on 3 airplanes. So they debunked one video. But then they released one video, which was, I think it's called the Tic Tac.
Yeah, there was little clips released in 2017.
Yeah. In 2022, some military ship latched onto this craft. So NASA admitted the Middle East video cannot be explained. They can't just debunk that one. They said there's something going on, but we can't explain it. So that's all they said. They said there's one video which we can't explain. So that is an admission of a sort, right?
Yeah.
We can't explain that one. Then what happened was they were supposed to release a report, but they didn't. So what happened was in July 14th of 2023, there was a bill called the HR 7900 where the National Defense Administration Act passed the House. So the House passed this bill. It's called HR 7900, where the House is requesting access to these 800 Defense Department documents, right? There's a lot of people in the House of Representatives, who are not happy that they've been denied access to these documents. So they created a bill, and this bill passed in July of this year. And then now that bill has to go to the Senate, and then it has to go to the president to sign it. And then it's signed into bill. Then they will have access to those 800 documents.
It'll be in December. Apparently, they say December is it'll be on the next NDAA, which was December. It's the Schumer amendment, which is the key thing, because it's got a lot of teeth. I mean, Chuck Schumer is one of the most powerful people in Congress.
July 26th was the House subcommittee hearing where 3 whistleblowers came and gave their confessions here. So you had Richard Graves, who was an ex-U.S. Navy pilot, and he said he was one of the ones who saw this. He called it a black cube inside of a clear.
He said there was a square with a circle with a sphere inside it. I think, was it the other way around? Either way, the skeptics say It's actually a radar target balloon. However, I can't find any photographs of this anywhere. And I've asked them, well, do you have any images or plans or design? Could you show us a photograph of this? And they said, I can't find one. Someone showed me a hand drawing, which they've probably done themselves. That's it. So, yeah, it's a very strange thing that Lieutenant Graves actually came up with. Yeah.
But then the important thing about this Ryan Graves is that he is a representative of 30 other whistleblowers who are all willing to step forward. So he says, I'm just representing 30 other people. So this is interesting because, the House is going to continue doing these subcommittee meetings, and they're planning on bringing out more whistleblowers in the future.